I was a huge fan of the Spider-Man 2 game on the PS2. It was perfection all round. I loved the music, I loved the way the story weaved in between being true to the Spider-Man 2 movie and incorporating its own plot threads into the mix. I loved the combat, I loved Bruce Campbell's narrator, I loved the open world of New York which you could explore. I loved being able to fight spontaneous issues like major crimes like armed robbery to minor inconveniences like the dreaded task of returning a girl's balloon. Its excellence in getting the details right really made you feel like a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and it's one of those games that, as brilliant as I found it, I grew to appreciate even further once new Spider-Man titles came out and couldn't quite hit the mark. The biggest attribute of the game was the incredible swinging system, which had you having to use your brain when swinging, as you couldn't simply swing from thin air but would have to attach your web onto nearby buildings, skyscrapers and even helicopters. It would mean your swinging was affected by your environment, but magically not only did it work, but it was the most satisfying part of the game, especially later on when you unlock faster swinging and the ability to perform tricks in mid-air. The swinging of Spider-Man 2 became famous and much emulated but never matched, not to my knowledge anyway, in any other Spider-Man game. Until now apparently. Marvel's Spider-Man, the new original PS4 exclusive, is getting heaps of praise, and one of the consistent comments is how good the swinging is. I watched a couple of videos online and saw that it did look really good. As I mentioned in my PS4 review, a good Spider-Man game as good as the Spider-Man 2 game on the PS2, even simply a HD remaster of that one, was one of the two reasons I would be willing to buy a PS4. So I gave it some thought and eventually I went for it. Bought the console, bought the game, played it for a few hours in the limited time I have to play games. And I know it sounds hyperbolic and early to say, but I really do think already, even at this premature stage, that this is even better than Spider-Man 2. Where to begin? Well, the swinging for one is staggeringly good. Like with the Spider-Man 2, you often forget what mission objectives you have and just start swinging away to wherever the city takes you. But it's on a whole new level to Spider-Man 2. It's hard to explain. It's the weight of Superman, the trajectory of the swing, the momentum and direction. It's just absolutely perfect. And the camera sharply has a knack for slightly adjusting itself to give the swings a dynamic and stimulating look. Remember the cutscenes in Spider-Man 2, which looked so much sharper than the gameplay? It feels like you're playing that, only better, and not least because of the game's stunning graphics. The controls and abilities as Spider-Man are so that you can swing, web zip, wall crawl, wall sprint, and do so many tricks, all in sweeping singular movements that flood you with satisfying sensations. It's a massive 2 thumbs up and a round of applause for what they achieved in the game with the swinging. And it knows how good it is, which is probably why the game has you start by literally jumping out of a window and start swinging away to your destination, in what is a superb first mission for getting a feel of the game. The game also wants you to swing. It actively encourages you to explore with loads of Easter eggs, supplementary side quests including the backpack retrievals that Spidey geeks will grin with excitement at due to the references. But it also hides sections of the map on your radar until you go out there and activate the tower beacon. Which leads me to something quite important for the game, which it gets right. A character tells us that some inside dirty police job has caused those beacons to shut down. You have to reactivate them. That's the in-game reason, but what that in turn does is prompt you, push you to explore and discover. That's one of the things I love about the game the most. You're not just running around as a character, beating people up and stuff, and a Spider-Man label being stuck on the game's front cover. You are Spider-Man, and actively have to play the game as Spider-Man would act in order to succeed. The Arkham games were praised for making you feel like Batman, but I would say this game does a better job of making you feel like Spider-Man 3 times over. Speaking of the Arkham games, this one borrows from the fighting mechanics, which always seemed better suited to a Spider-Man game anyway, and delivers in full web-throwing force. I personally liked the combat in Spider-Man 2, but it was one of the game's more basic elements. This game is so good, so varied, you feel satisfaction in beating baddies to a pulp and webbing them up, but also sheer joy in watching it all. because the action feels so fluid. There are many elements to the game which suggest it was made with genuine love. There are many things that fans will at least love. For example, the photo mode makes full use of the PS4 screenshot ability, and there's hours of fun to be had in trying to nail the perfect shot. I also really dig the fact that you can play the game in different suits, free of charge, including the Sam Raimi Spidey suit. Unlockable fight moves and swinging abilities keep the already excellent gameplay increasingly getting better, and even as it is now, with me swinging around New York City doing bits and bobs and fighting the odd thug here and there, it's perfect. I've hardly touched the main story, but I look forward to it. In a game in which everything else has exceeded expectations and delivered something I can't help but feel everyone who plays it will love it. Thanks for watching.